November 24th. A man is about to experience the most savage execution in English history. What they're going to do to Hugh Despenser will make you question everything you thought you knew about medieval justice. But here's what nobody tells you. This wasn't just an execution. This was calculated revenge that had been brewing for over a decade, and the man ordering it was the future King of England himself. Picture England in 1326. Edward II sits on the throne, but he's not really in control. For the past 15 years, one man has pulled the strings behind the crown, Hugh Despenser the Younger. And if you think modern political corruption is bad, wait until you hear what this guy got away with. Despenser isn't just the king's advisor, he's his obsession. Edward showers him with lands, titles and power that rightfully belong to England's most powerful nobles. We're talking about a medieval oligarch who controlled trade routes, manipulated courts, and basically held the entire kingdom hostage. But in 1326, everything changes. The Queen, Isabella of France, has had enough. She's formed an alliance that's about to bring down not just Despenser, but the king himself. And when they catch Hugh Despenser, well, they're going to make sure he pays for every single crime, every stolen land, every life destroyed. What happens next isn't just execution, it's medieval justice at its most terrifyingly creative. To understand why Hugh Despenser died the way he did, you need to know just how spectacular his rise and fall really were. Hugh Despenser the Younger arrives at Edward II's court as a minor noble, but Edward II has a problem. He falls obsessively in love with his male favorites, and Despenser quickly becomes the king's new obsession. Within 5 years, Despenser goes from nobody to the second most powerful man in England. Edward grants him lands worth millions in today's money. But here's where it gets really corrupt. Despenser starts using royal authority to steal from other nobles. He forces widows to sell him their estates for pennies. He trumps up charges against his enemies and seizes their property. He controls who gets access to the king, essentially holding the entire government hostage to his personal greed. By 1321, England's most powerful barons have had enough. They force Edward to exile both Despensers, Hugh and his father. But here's what makes this story incredible. Edward II literally goes to war to bring his favorite back. Edward wins, and Despenser returns more powerful than ever. Now he's not just corrupt, he's vengeful. Anyone who supported his exile gets destroyed. We're talking executions, confiscations, families ruined overnight. Enter Isabella of France, and Edward's queen, and one of the most formidable women in medieval history. Despenser has made a fatal mistake. He's crossed her. Isabella isn't just angry about the corruption. Despenser has been systematically isolating her from Edward, controlling her finances, even separating her from her children. He's essentially made the Queen of England a prisoner in her own kingdom. So in 1325, Isabella does something brilliant. She convinces Edward to send her to France on a diplomatic mission. But once she's there, she doesn't come back. Instead, she starts building an invasion force. And here's the kicker, she's not alone. She's allied herself with Roger Mortimer, one of Despenser's greatest enemies who escaped from the Tower of London. This isn't just about removing a corrupt advisor anymore. This is personal. September 1326. Isabella lands in England with a small army. But here's what nobody expected. The entire country rises to support her. Nobles, commoners, even Edward's own soldiers start defecting. Edward and the Despensers try to flee to Wales, but it's hopeless. The king is captured first. Then on November 16th, they find Hugh Despenser hiding in the Welsh mountains. But Isabella and Mortimer don't just want to execute him. They want to send a message to anyone who would ever think of corrupting the crown again. What they plan for Hugh Despenser will become the stuff of nightmares. November 24th, 1326. Hereford Marketplace. They've built a scaffold 50 feet high, so everyone can see what's about to happen. Hugh Despenser hasn't eaten in days. They've been starving him during his captivity. He can barely stand as they drag him to face his judges. The charges read against him aren't just treason, they're a catalogue of 15 years of systematic corruption and cruelty. But here's what makes this execution so horrific. They don't just sentence him to death. They sentence him to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. But that's not even the worst part. First, they strip him naked and write biblical verses across his body. Humiliation was part of medieval punishment. Then they put a crown of nettles on his head, mocking his pretensions to royal power. The hanging comes first, but they don't let him die. They cut him down while he's still conscious. Then comes the part that medieval chroniclers could barely bring themselves to describe. They castrate him, a direct punishment for his alleged unnatural relationship with the king. Then they disembowel him while he's still alive, burning his entrails in front of his face. Medieval chroniclers record that he was still conscious, still screaming. Only then do they behead him and cut his body into quarters. His head gets sent to London to be displayed on London Bridge. His body parts are distributed to 4 different cities across England, a warning that could be seen for miles. The entire execution lasted hours. Medieval chroniclers, who had seen plenty of executions, called this one uniquely savage. One wrote that even the crowd, which had come expecting entertainment, fell silent near the end. So why did Hugh Despenser die in such an incredibly brutal way? This wasn't just an execution, this was a calculated political statement. Isabella and Mortimer needed to prove that no one, no matter how close to the king, was above the law. Despenser's death was designed to terrify anyone who might think about corrupting royal power again, and it worked. Edward II was forced to abdicate just months later, the first English king ever forced to give up his throne. Isabella and Mortimer ruled in the name of Edward's teenage son, Edward III. But here's the irony that makes this story even more incredible. Mortimer himself became just as corrupt as Despenser ever was, and in 1330, Edward III had him executed in almost exactly the same way. Despenser's execution became the template for punishing those who corrupted royal authority. For the next 2 centuries, whenever someone was convicted of treason in England, they faced the same horrific death that Hugh Despenser pioneered. But here's what's really fascinating. Modern historians have started to question whether Despenser was really worse than other medieval power brokers, or whether his sexuality and relationship with Edward made him a convenient scapegoat for England's problems. What we do know is that his death marked the end of one era of English politics and the beginning of another. The brutal execution of Hugh Despenser proved that in medieval England, the only thing more dangerous than having no power was having too much. Speaking of power and corruption in medieval England, next week we're diving into the story of Thomas Becket, the archbishop who thought he could challenge a king and paid the ultimate price. That murder in Canterbury Cathedral sparked a chain of events that nearly brought down the entire English church. If you're fascinated by these stories of medieval power, betrayal, and revenge, you need to subscribe to join our community of 50,000+ history obsessives. We drop these cinematic historical deep dives every Tuesday, and trust me, the stories only get more insane from here. Hit that notification bell because our next episode reveals how one dinner invitation in 1170 led to the most shocking assassination in medieval history. The History Squad won't want to miss this one.